Okay, a little bit about how the class is structured. So for each week, as I said in the last video, we have an overview. This overview window will have additional information. You can see the introduction to the class now, the reading, links. In this week, we have the SAS training, an Edward Tufte presentation. I don't care which Edward Tufte video you watch. I just listed one, but you can Google some other ones. A whole bunch of SAS information. So this is kind of our high-level overview for each page. In addition to that, we have a week one discussion, a week one two discussions, one on dashboards, which is what the reading has to do with, and the second one on an example of a data presentation. And then finally, a week one SAS SQL introduction. I will get this, it's a very loosely defined exercise right now. I'll get a little more definition put into this soon. So that is kind of how our discussions work. So here you're going to discuss the question in the title, include information both your readings and your exercise and your experience with data. So the question this week is, why are dashboards wicked problems? The dashboard, a definition of what a dashboard is in Stephen Few's chapter 1 and 2. And then there's a wicked problem paper, so you can see how this ties to the reading. If I come back to the module, then we have a second one, which is a good example of a data presentation. Include the link, evaluate the design. What message was the data presentation supposed to demonstrate? Did it a good job? What would you change to make it more effective? And how does it tie to the readings? So that is how the class is structured. All right. So objective, syllabus, question-based learning, the 5 whys. The 5 whys is a learning methodology where you simply ask why 5 times. So if you have small children in your life, you'll understand that this is something that most people naturally engage in until about the age of 6, when they get put into school and they're told to be quiet. So I'm going to teach you back how to be 5-year-olds again and just keep asking why 5 times. And so let me actually skip now to this data presentation. I'll explain it here. So I grabbed, just because the Olympics just finished, the medal count by country. And this was what Google posted. So we have the number of gold, silver, bronze in total by country. So the first why I would ask is, all right, so we're seeing a lot of the first top 3 countries are relatively cold, right? Would it be interesting to see this analysis by geography? Do we have more people in northern climates winning, or in colder climates typically, winning medals in the Winter Olympics? I'm curious, the second one I'm going to ask is, well, what about in different fields, right? The Olympics span everything from curling to biathlons to skiing, snowboarding, ice skating, etc. What is the breakout of these medals by athletic type, or by activity type, right? Did Norway win all these medals across the board on everything, or just in a few things? And then I would ask, the next question is, why is, let's then look at, I actually clicked the more information at the bottom of the graph on Google, and it just gave me more countries. Let me do it by activity, right? Do I want to see ice skating? Do I want to see curling? Do I want to see etc.? Right, so that's 3 whys, and already I've gotten quite a bit of information. I'm going to ask you to also ask the question, what's the framing of this? Who's looking at this data and why are they asking for a total medal count? Yes, the total medal count is interesting and people track it, but it's extremely shallow because of the questions I asked above. So again, most people who watch the Olympics have a particular sport that they like to watch, or a particular handful of sports, and are interested in that. Or if, let's say, you're in the United States and you want to say, okay, why did the United States really fall off this medal count? Which sports did they not perform well at, etc. If you ask 5 whys, and typically the 5 whys are asked in a dynamic environment where I could drill into the data, by the time you're done with 5, you have a very strong understanding of what that data set is showing. And I would challenge you to try to do that on one of the activities, because it's very deep to ask 5 whys. So that's the 5 why methodology. So it is an example. All right. So textbooks, we talked about that in the last video. Stephen Few, Spotfire, Tufte is optional, but they're beautiful books. They're just beautiful books. The reason that I did Stephen Few instead of Tufte is that Stephen Few is really much more applied. He's much more, here's what is of interest to someone doing data visualization in terms of a dashboard using modern tools. Tufte is much more academic. He absolutely hates Microsoft. He's much more academic, and sometimes students have troubles applying his concepts to tools that exist in the modern world that they can use, or people in working environments. Wicked problems. Okay, so the wicked problem, I've linked you the wicked problem paper. There's a number of rules for wicked problems, but what's not listed here is that a problem is made particularly wicked because there are multiple frames for that problem. And what do I mean by that? Framing on a problem says who's asking the question. So let me give you an example from sales. If you have a sales manager who's trying to track performance of their employees in the printer business, I used to work in the printer business, what they will track will be commissionable sales revenue. So that will be how close, because why? Because they get targeted. They get paid targets on commissions and against particular, they get bonuses on these targets. They're going to care about their sales revenue against these targets so that they can meet their bonuses. In addition to that, though, if I look at a finance manager or the division manager, they're going to care about how much product shipped out the door, right? How much revenue was generated off that product? What is the margins on that product against cost? And so they will actually have a very different number that they're going to be interested in. They're going to want the real financial numbers of what got shipped. If you have a matrix organization where roles are split, we'll go back to the printer example, you might have one part of the organization care about the printers that ship and another organization that cares about the ink that got shipped or the contracts that got shipped on it. Often printers shipped to large corporations or even medium-sized businesses get shipped on I call them like cell phone plans. They're on print plans. And so that way you tie up that they don't buy the off-label ink. So they might care about what is the number of contracts that were sold for each example. So that is an example framing. So you've got the salesperson wants one number, which is number of commissionable dollars. The operations, the business owner wants to know how much money was made, and possibly the contracts person is going to want to know what kinds of contracts were sold on that. And so when people say to you, well, data is data, it speaks for itself. It doesn't. You really will build a different data analysis depending on what question is being asked. And that is the framing problem that's inherent behind the wicked problems. So go ahead, read the wicked problem paper. I will post more on that paper once you guys have had a chance to read it. But I'm going to make the argument that most dashboards are in fact wicked problems, with possibly the exception of that they're not all one-shot operations. There are tricks that you will learn when you do dashboards, processes that you will follow. So while the solution might be a one-off, the process that you will follow to develop a good data analysis will be consistent across multiple analyses. So I've done the review of the current data visualization. Again, what I would be looking for you guys here is to say, okay, Stephen Few talked about dashboards. the biggest or the first requirement of a dashboard that gets violated in almost every business I've been in is that all the information has to be in one screen. So from that perspective, this dashboard has met that requirement. That's the good. The bad is that it really shows very little information, and showing the numbers isn't particularly interesting. There was another graphic I saw with a bar chart that would have been more interesting. Pie charts in this case would be a disaster. I'm going to warn you right now, I almost never like pie charts. And so that's the good, the bad. The ugly is that this is an extremely shallow look at the medal count. There's no way to drill into it. There's no explanation by sport. There's no way to cut the data in any other way than just total medal count. There's no mapping of it, which might be interesting. I would love to see a mapping of, I don't know, Olympic skaters by, or even Olympic skiers by facilities. How close to facilities did they grow up, right? You don't tend to see Olympic skaters who grew up in, the southern United States where no one ice skates. They tend to be in northern climates, and possibly they grew up near ice skating rinks with programs. That might be interesting. Because if the question is, I'm back to the question is, how do we improve the United States standings on this? I think we need to understand, where did this medal count fall down and which sports, and then much more information on the information behind those sports. If we want to understand what happened in Norway, that's a slightly different question. A couple things I read, it looks like Norway was even surprised, right? You can talk about training, activities, etc. But so that's kind of a quick overview of this medal count by country. So in the next video, I will go ahead and do more on the wicked problems as well as more on the reading with Stephen Few. I want to give you guys a chance to look at that. I also would like to set up a time to do a live class with you all. And I've gotten only 2 responses so far. It looks like Tuesday and Thursday evenings would be good times to do live classes. We will not get a live class taken done in week 1. I don't think there's any way to schedule that ahead of time, but we can look forward to future weeks to decide which evening would work best if there's an opportunity. Obviously, I understand that many of you guys might not be in the East Coast time zone, and so a 6 or 7 o'clock class on the East Coast is still during your working hours, in which case we won't, those will be recorded and you won't be required to attend them. I will also set up a review session towards the end of the week where we can talk. Those people who can attend it can call in maybe on a Thursday night and talk more in depth about the reading or the materials in the class. All right, so the last thing to cover will be the homework, the SAS SQL homework. In this case, I have SAS Hello World, load SAS, build some libraries, load a data set of your own and filter on a topic and perform a proc summary. So if this is too high level of a proc SQL statement, you don't have to do a proc SQL statement this week, sorry. If this is too high level of a introduction to SAS, please ping me, send me an email or a note, or put a comment on this assignment, and I will add a lot more details to it. But what I'm looking for is that you load something into SAS and perform some basic analysis in SAS. Will also do some SAS training as well, but there are the SAS videos that you should watch also. Okay, thank you very much and have a great week.